So, Alchemy of Life back with another video, y'all. So my last stream cut off because my phone died, even though I had it on the charger, but we're going to get into it. So it's the same stream, basically. Hopefully it's the same stream. So, let me see where this actually, where he starts to talk about the dimensions. It should be page 40 on Laws of the Sun. So it says, number 8, the birth of life and death, the birth of human spirits and other life forms. So far, where is this shit at? I know he talks about the dimensions somewhere. Where is this shit at? Oh, the higher dimensions of the universe. Hold on, y'all. I'm still trying to find where I'm at. Where is it at? Hold on a second. Hold on. Because he tells you about the dimensions and like the level, like it's like a frequency check. You can check to see what level that you're at based upon what dimension that you're vibrating with. Because we're all in different dimensions, but in one space of time. So I know I've seen it in here because I should have took notes. Nobody in yet? Okay. Trash. Where is this shit at? Oh. Still trying to find it. Hold on 1 second. Being in time, it's gotta be somewhere else. Nobody on the chat yet, so we're good. We're good. Dark matter. That's where he talks about that, but doesn't really say that's what that is. Is a universe multi-dimensional? The higher dimensions of the universe. Now that we're in a dimension, 7th dimension and beyond, in addition to all the qualities of the 6th dimension, characterized by the altruism. Therefore, the 5th dimension is a world full of virtuous. Oh, okay. I found it. So I gotta just find the start. So this is where he starts talking about the dimensions. This shit is ill. This shit is fucking ill. So, is a universe multidimensional? The word dimension is crucially important to understanding many worlds that lie beyond this one. You may be wondering what I mean by it. By definition, it's similar to the common usage, but it's also a bit different in the context of this book. Dimensions are a way of describing characteristics. Let me move the camera back. Dimensions are a way of describing characteristics of a specific world and its inhabitants to how many traits they possess. For instance, the first dimension, so now this is the first dimension. Pay attention. This shit's crazy. I got beer and tea. Got tea in here. 5G. Got some 5G detox tea, but go ahead and drink some of this beer. Fuck it. Hey, it's probably, I haven't had anything to eat at all. I'm doing the flush out, but besides flushing today, I'm gonna have this beer. Fuck it. It says, for instance, the first dimension is a world made up of straight lines. So the first dimension is just like it is. So the first 3 dimensions are easy to think about if you think about it from the context of 3D. So 3-dimensional is basic. 3-dimensional is just this fucking hand. The fact that I have a consciousness makes me this vessel 4-dimensional. So he goes through all the dimensions. So we're gonna read. So we got someone on the chat reading out of Laws of the Sun. We're going through the dimensions, and it's gonna help you see where you're at, basically. Almost like a frequency check. I'm gonna try to move the camera. So it says for instance, the first dimension is a world made up of straight lines, which themselves are points strung together. In the first dimension, if the first dimension had inhabitants, their strength would be the only way to distinguish one from another. If 2 inhabitants were exactly the same length, no one would be able to tell them apart. So that's the first dimension. Easy. Straight lines, that kind of thing, connecting them. Easy. First dimension, second dimension, easy. We're going to go to the second dimension now. The second dimension is a world of length and width. Remember math class? Base times height, length times width. Easy shit. So the second dimension is a world of length and width, which introduces the existence of a plane. If the second dimension had inhabitants, they would look like paper cutouts. If 2 people were exactly the same shape and size, they would be indistinguishable. So you wouldn't be able to tell them apart, basically. Then what about the third dimension? So now we're kind of getting to the third dimension now, 3D. So the world we inhabit now, the third dimension, this world is composed of 3 elements that define physical shape, form as we know it, length, width, and height. So how long it is, how wide it is, and how tall it is. Easy. Easy. It's only going to get more complicated from here, but... So, in the third dimension, two people could only be identical if they shared exactly the same proportions of these three elements, aka twins. Identical twins. Now we're getting on to something. This provides a more sophisticated way of distinguishing one person from another, aka DNA. He's hinting at things without actually saying them. In the fourth dimension, so now we're on dimension number 4, that 4 horsemen. The fourth dimension, the element of time. You add time in, that's when everything gets fucked up. So the dimension of the element time is added to length, width, and height. So fourth dimensional would be noticing, okay, we're in the 3D world, but everybody probably on this chat, so myself and everybody that's on the chat is probably in a different time zone. You see what I'm saying? We're in different frequencies of time. Like it's 7:13 over here, but it could be 5:13 where you're at, or 6:13 where you're at. Or, you know, you could be fucking 10 hours ahead. But we're still on the same timeline. So time is added. That's fourth dimension. Time. So this is almost like straight out the Emerald Tablets. But he said this was a channel. If you read this book, he said this was a channel. So the fourth dimension, the element of time is added to length, width, height, and height. Yeah. In our world, things that exist in the same general space will not exist in the same time. That's what I'm saying. We're sharing the same space right now, but not sharing the same timeline. Some of us could, like, even if it's 7:13, you're in a whole different world in your own. You're at your house. I'm at my house. You see what I'm saying? Fourth dimensional shit. So now we're gonna keep going. But not in this case. In the fourth dimension, when you meet someone else here on Earth and shake hands, both of you share the same moment on the same day, of the week, in the same year. It is different in the fourth dimension, where two people shaking hands could be living in completely different periods in history. For example, if two Americans were meeting and shaking hands at a specific location, it would be possible for one of them to be from the colonial period and the other to have lived during the Great Depression, etc., etc. So basically, that's be like you versus your grandparents, like right now. Like you shaking hands with someone who's older than you, or you sharing space with someone who's a lot older. You see what I'm saying? They're from a different era. They were born in a different time, in a different space, than you were, yet you're sharing the same space right now. Crazy. We don't really think about these things. So that's the fourth dimension. So he starts to build it up. Alright. Let me see. Where was I? For example, oh, this would never happen in the third dimension, but it happens all the time in the fourth dimension. In the fourth dimension, it is difficult to tell if the building in front of you exists now, or if it stood there for centuries ago, because if it were an image from the past, you would still be able to touch and feel it as if it were real. In the world of the fourth dimension, everybody's watch shows a different time. You could meet a beautiful woman in her early 20s who lived on Earth in Japan in the Heian period, 794 to 1195. The same principle applies to future events, and inhabitants of the fourth dimension can predict something that will occur in the third dimension's future, because for them it would seem as if it were occurring right now. So that's that quantum physics of everything is happening right now. In the third dimension, everything's like futuristic. Everything's happening. It's all about tomorrow. That's like third dimensional, but quantum physics said everything is happening now. So the fact that we know that everything's happening now, we could, use predictive programming or channeling or, divination to quote unquote tell the future in the third dimension. but not in the fourth dimension. I guess well we could in the fourth dimension, but that's not the idea he was trying to get across. So we're gonna keep going. So the fourth dimension, where was I? Of spiritual virtue. Its inhabitants are distinct from one another, not only in shape and the time period to which they belong, but also in the level of spiritual awareness. Having spiritual awareness, knowing that you are fundamentally spiritual beings, is required for becoming an inhabitant of this world. So I'm going to stop right there. So everybody on this channel is at least in 5D, technically, by these terms. Okay, you have the 1D, which is lines, 2 dots and a line, basically. You have 2D, which is length times with its length and height, and you have 3D, which is length, height, and width. 4D throws in time to that equation, so now everything is existing, everything is now moving, everything is vibrating. Alright, now you add in, you go to the 5th dimension, and that's spirituality. So if you're on the spiritual path, you at least know where you are. You're at least here in 5D. We're talking about consciously. So that's a requirement for this dimension. So, and we're going to keep going. So the element of spirituality is principally measured by goodness. Therefore, the 5th dimension is a world filled with virtuous people. Knowledge of the truth is the element found in the 6th dimension. So we're on from spirituality, and now you have the people who are spiritual, but they're seeking the truth. They're not just, oh, love and light. They're seeking the truth. So now 6th dimension adds everything else from the previous 5, but it adds truth to it. Not just spirituality, but truth. Knowledge of the truth is the additional element found in the 6th dimension, which means the inhabitants of this world are different in all ways, in all the ways of the 5th dimension, as well as in their knowledge of truths. The qualification for living in the 6th dimension are virtue and having learned Buddhist teachings. Of course, the degree of learning varies from person to person. Differences in the level of study determine the finer distinctions that exist within the 6th dimension, but every inhabitant of this dimension believes and trusts in the truth of the truths. Damn. So the 6th dimension, so you have the 1st dimension, like we said, is lines and dots. 2nd dimension is length and width. 3rd dimension is length, width, height, aka, an object. And the 4th dimension adds time. Time, how it is in all, varying in different ways. 5th dimension adds spirituality, and the 6th dimension adds the knowledge of the truths and Buddhist teachings. So you can just decode what is Buddhist teachings. Like, he says that from his point of view, he's from Japan, from the Eastern culture, and they're really into that. So Buddhist teaching has its own vibration and frequency. So it's just knowledge of self and truth. So the knowledge of self is the truth, basically. That's basically what it's saying when he means by Buddhist teachings. So on to it, and then that can in turn help you see where the fuck you're at. Everybody viewing this video is at least consciously 5th dimensional. More than likely. I would say more than likely. More than likely on that level. So now we're going to move on to the distinctions of the 7th dimension. Now we move on to the 7th dimension and beyond. In addition to all the qualities of the 6th dimension, the 7th dimension is characterized by the element of altruism. Inhabitants of dimensions below the 7th still live in a very self-focused way, which is not a negative reflection on them, but a simple observation. So basically, when you're going into yourself and you're very introspective, you're trying to figure out who you are and on the path of knowledge of self and different things like that. That's sixth dimension and below. But that's really more like the sixth dimension is what it's saying. So if that's where you're stuck at, that's where you're, well, not stuck at, but that's where you're at. That's where you're working on yourself, which many of us are, you know, and that's where you're more focused. You're not in the seventh dimension or higher, but you're getting there. So, but that's just an observation, basically. Even those who live in the sixth dimension are very advanced. So you're still very advanced for being in the sixth dimension, obviously. Obviously, if you made it there. Are still, so it says, even those who live in the sixth dimension, while very advanced, are still striving to absorb much of the truths as possible for their own spiritual improvement and growth. They and all the inhabitants of the dimensions below are like students who haven't yet completed their formal education. So basically, what that says is, being in the sixth dimension, you're still the student. So if you still feel like you're learning, you still feel like you're in student mode, like you're not really in teacher. You can still be like in student teacher mode, but it's more like you're still the student. You're still learning. Then you can tell where you're at. You're in the sixth dimension more than likely. You have the truth of self, knowledge of self, the truths of enlightenment you're seeking. That's more than likely where you're at. So I'm going to keep going. Yet completed their formal education. To extend this analogy, the inhabitants of the sixth dimension are like university students. Those of the fifth dimension are like high school students. Those in the fourth dimension are like middle school students. While the third dimension, you're in elementary school. When people are admitted to the seventh dimension, their education is complete. I really like his analogies in this book when he's talking about the dimensions and how they're explained. It's like I said, you're still in student mode in the sixth dimension. And let me see. Yeah, you're still in student mode. You're in higher learning. So spirituality, the higher learning of spirituality starts in the fifth dimension, sixth dimension. That's where you graduate from high school and you start college, basically, quote unquote. And a lot of us are in or who are hip to this shit, at least, we feel like this is the, going to college if you've never been, or this is if you've been to college or, been in university, this is like that, only it's different. You're taking yourself there. You're learning about yourself and you're self-teaching, self-mastery. So that's really what that's more so like. So I like the analogies that he's using here. If you can get them. So, and like when you enter the seventh dimension, now you're ready to be the teacher, because now you're the master. Now you're ready to teach or to do. When people are admitted to the seventh dimension, their education is complete. They have become fully aware members of society. In this dimension, their hearts are filled with love towards others, and all their deeds are based on selfless service. Inhabitants of the seventh dimension are always giving love to each other, but they are also actively instructing and guiding residents of lower dimensions, especially the fourth dimension, where inhabitants have not fully yet realized that they are spiritual beings and are in search of salvation through goodness. So the fourth dimensional is like Christians. They just don't know what they got. Or just like religious folk. They don't quite know. They don't quite know. But they're still in search of some form of salvation. So the seventh dimension is kind of like guiding them. So people, if you remember when you were at the religious point, if you were ever at that point, if you grew up that way, like I grew up that way, I got here. I can really say I got here because I was guided by someone from a higher dimension, like your higher self. You know, your seventh dimensional self guided you here, or your ancestors. Where are we at? Okay. Finally, some spirits of the seventh dimension choose to reincarnate in human form in the third dimension, so that they may give their love and service for the benefit of all beings on earth. So, you know, we've heard that before. More advanced spirits coming down, like the fallen angels, using their knowledge and their technology, which is the spiritual technology, and then that everything starts spiritually and comes from as above, so below, and they're able to use that in the third dimension, in this realm, but consciously they're higher dimension, so they know how to maneuver it. So that's something to take note of. So basically, they fall down to Earth to come and to help out and to teach and do whatever. So they, you know, to give service, to give love and service for the benefit of all beings living on Earth. So Earth will be the third dimension. And the eighth dimension, so 8, we're on the eighth dimension. Compassion is added. So now we're adding compassion. Compassion is added to the seven fire elements. Compassion is the desire to give unconditional mercy. And these higher sacred beings offer it freely without reservation of distinction, while the love of the seventh dimension can be called a love that gives. So basically, the difference between the seventh and eighth dimension is unconditional love versus love. So unconditional love is the love, like the love. It's always compared as the love of a mother, you know, being that unconditional love. Like a mother's child could do horrendous things, and she still loves them no matter what. Versus the conditional love, which is the opposite of that. I love you, and I will give this love to you, but I have my terms. Like, if you do this, I'm not going to love you no more. You see what I'm saying? And it's perfectly fine to be there. It's perfectly, you know, it's perfectly fine. But you know what? If you know the power of unconditional love, you know why it's important to kind of cultivate that within yourself, so that you can give it to other people. Something that I'm right at that brink. Right at that brink. Well, actually, I would say I passed that brink. Like, I would say I got at least to the eighth dimension based upon that. But sometimes you can go between dimensions as well. You know, it's called falling down. You know, fallen angels, you fall down. So, you know, that's something to take note of as well. So you add, in the eighth dimension, we add compassion. That's added to the prior 7 elements. Compassion is desire to give unconditional mercy, and these higher sacred beings offer it freely. Keyword, offer it freely, without reservation or distinction. While the love of the seventh dimension is called a love that gives, the even higher love of the eighth dimension could be described as love that gives inexhaustibly. So we just went over that. Or without love without limits. The love of the seventh dimension can be achieved by human endeavor. The spirits here share with others the love that they have themselves, have accumulated, mouthful, through effort and in compassion. The love of the eighth dimension is never ending, much like the sun. It is true compassion. Inhabitants of the seventh dimension give their love to specific people and give different amounts of love to different people. I see. So in that fits perfectly. It's like you love the people you love, and everybody else gets a variation of that. And the eighth dimension is everybody gets the same amount of love from you, and it's conditional. I mean, unconditional love. Everybody gets that unconditional love from you. Seventh dimension, your love has conditions. The love of the eighth dimension is absolutely fair and selfless. It is so magnanimous that it has transcended any human notion of partiality and is given freely to all. It is to all. It is because they provide all beings with this unlimited love that inhibits the eighth dimension, deserve to be honored as great leaders. So, who are our great leaders in history that we can tell gave unconditional love? Because they were at least an eighth dimensional being. That's I think we could think of some. I'm not gonna say any because we don't know these people personally, but I'm thinking we could at least think of some. You know, it's not very many. There were leaders there are a lot of seven dimensional leaders who that we talk about today. We see them as eighth dimensional leaders, but because we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, they're most likely seven dimensional, just by these elements. This little tea with honey, 5G tea, doing a cleanse except for the beer. But since I'm not really drinking that often, like when you don't really drink that often and you have a beer, like it will cleanse your colon and, well, more importantly, your kidneys and your liver. But when you drinking all the time, then it will do damage to it. Just a tip. Learn that from some old folks. And just being like an herbalist. So where were we? The framework of the ninth dimension. So we're on to the ninth dimension now. Ninth dimension. So the framework of the ninth dimension includes a new element I call cosmic universality. So the universe, the cosmos, is the ninth dimension. That's where they begin. That's not where they end. That's where they begin. And when I was reading these chapters before, I kind of got confused, but reading them again, I can see that's where they begin, and they just keep going and going. Technically, they don't just start here, because the cosmos encompass everything, but when the cosmos become, I don't say separate, but separate from being human beings, it's like the ninth dimensional consciousness. In a way, kind of hard to explain, but ninth dimensional is where your thinking is more universal. And technically, it really starts at the eighth dimension because the cosmos, the foundation of them is unconditional love, which is dark energy / dark matter. Technically. In the eighth dimension and below, inhabitants live within the multi-layered structure of the planet, Earth's spiritual field. The ninth dimension, however, reaches beyond Earth's spiritual field, connecting it to the spirit worlds of other planets beyond our solar system. So the inhabitants of the ninth dimensional guide the Earth's spirit group based on the awareness of and involvement in spiritual evolution. Damn. On a large scale, as part of a great cosmic universe, the deities of world religions who have been considered the source of the laws inhabit this ninth dimension. We're going to stop there. So, the deities that Christians on the fourth dimension, or religious people pray to, they're in the ninth dimension. The deities and their energies that hopefully you're not worshiping deities. You're working with their energy, because you want to work with deities' energy as an aspect of you, because they're an aspect of you, like Thoth. You want hella wisdom, hella knowledge. You want to be that. You want to tap into that Nikola Tesla type energy. He was probably working with Thoth's energy, that inventor energy. You see what I'm saying? That Thoth's energy is powerful. It's one of the most powerful ones out there. But the energy of these deities, or just them, where they encompass themselves, where they hide, where they are formless at, is the ninth dimension. That's fucking awesome. The universe. It's awesome to know. To give that a space within space. How's everybody's day going though? Feel free to hit the fucking chat up. Tell me how your day went. I had a beautiful day. Took a walk, 2.5 mile walk. Just did some things, ran some errands, did some trainings for work, social distancing myself, that type of thing. But I had a very enlightening day, especially the past 3.5 hours. Been very, very enlightening as to where I'm leading myself and where I would like to go. So we're gonna keep going. Spiritual evolution on a larger scale. As part of the greater cosmic universe, the deities of world religions, who have been considered the source of laws, inhabit this ninth dimension. The only aspect that distinguishes these gods from one another is their unique color of light. Come on. Ooh, he's speaking quantum physics now. So he goes from the physical to the spiritual to the mental. He goes all the way to quantum physics. So the difference between us and a deity is our light that we put off. The less light that you put off in the universe, the more dim your light it can be seen by people in the astral realm and other realms beyond that. So why certain people are targeted by energies, whether it be for benevolent or malevolent reasons, is because they're bright lights. So Rihanna says, shine bright like a diamond. Well, what is she talking about? She's talking about her light is very bright, obviously because she's a celebrity. That light is shining very bright. She puts the code out too. So she's definitely onto some shit. But like, when you put the light, the more truth that you put out there, the brighter your light begins to be. So it could be like the size of a pea, and a year later you keep going and you keep going. It's the size of a fucking truck. Now it's the size of this. Now it's a huge size. Now other cosmic beings and different things will be attracted to you just off the frequency of your light. So the electromagnetic spectrum comes into play because it is a spectrum of light to dark. And what they call dark matter is just light that cannot be seen. It's vibrating so quickly you cannot see it. As light itself, like the light that you can see around me, which is why you can see me, if I have my lights off you wouldn't be able to, is vibrating on a very slow rate. It's like the Wi-Fi symbol. Like that. You see that? The faster I move my finger, you can't see it. But if I'm like this, you can see it. You can't really see it. It's just like that. That's how light works. So where are we? Each of which is considered the source of the laws. The laws themselves ultimately come from one source. So, the laws, we all know, they come from a source or the same source, which we call the universe, source, energy, all that shit. But the different ninth dimensional spirits express them differently in 7 unique colors. Ooh, didn't we learn about the 7 base colors in the prism in school? But they never expounded on that? Now we're talking. This book is not just spiritual. It's going into quantum physics, and it's going into the physicality of how this world came to be and the dimensions. That's why I'm doing something on this book. I'm gonna have to do more, but it's Laws of the Sun by Ryuho Ryuho Okawa. OKAWA. This is a good one. Ashira, if you ever heard of Ashira Star Goddess, she picked this up randomly on a book haul and recommended it. And then she did a little bit on this. She didn't, she did a different part of this section, I remember, and that's when I'm like, I gotta get this book. I got it on Alibris, books.com. It's a place where you get books like really, really, really cheap. It's just like thrift books, and they get their books from like libraries and different places like that. But they outsource their books in a variety of ways, to where you can get a book like this, which is brand new, brand spanking new, even though they said it was used. Actually, no, this one was new. I got this for $1.19 plus $3.99 shipping and handling, and like $1 tax. Like, added up, this was a $25 book that I got for less than $10. So Alibris Books, if you're a reader like me, Alibris Books is the way to go. Thrift Books is the way to go. Definitely before you go to Barnes and Noble. If you can't find them, just go to your local bookstore. But I don't think you can. Quarantine. Well, you can shop online. So we're gonna keep going from there. So it says, differently in 7 unique colors. Beyond the 9th dimension lies the highest level of Earth's spiritual group, the 10th dimension. None of the inhabitants of this realm are ever born as humans on Earth. So from the 9th dimension and below, you can be born as a human on Earth in some shape or form, whether you go up or you go down. But the 10th dimension and beyond, they never manifest as us. This is why the Egyptians were so obsessed with death, because they don't want to come back to this place. It makes sense. Those were like the ancestors. Get you an ancestor altar. So, none of the inhabitants of this realm are ever born as humans on Earth. They have no human character. In fact, there are only three spirits in the 10th dimension who exist as separate consciousness. These 3 inhabitants of the 10th dimension possess the compassion of the 8th dimension and the universality of the 9th dimension, and they also take on roles in creation and evolution. The sole differences between these consciousness lie in their different responsibilities in the possession and the processes of creation and evolution. They no longer have the unique human personalities that are found in lower dimensions. The 3 consciousness of the 10th dimension are sun consciousness, the moon consciousness, and the earth. So the sun, the moon, and the earth. So the sun, you can decode the sun as the pineal gland. And let's say the Son of Man and the Emerald Tablets are talking about the fucking pineal gland, the Son of Man, the moon, and you have the earth. The moon is like your mind, your vibrations, your emotions, and the earth is your body, mind, and soul. Body, mind, soul, and spirit, as I like to say, because the mind and the spirit are interchangeable if you know alchemy. If you're very well studied in alchemy, you know that the spirit and the soul being, like, they represent in alchemy, like, I forgot which element on the periodic table, but it's interchangeable. I remember that. I do remember that. Like, I have Idiot's Guide to Alchemy over there, and Dennis William Huck explains it very, very well. Some good tea right there. Add some honey. If you ever buy any of my teas from my shop, if you add the right amount of honey, like I have raw honey, man, it pairs with it well. It brings out the taste, because my 5G tea can be very, very bitter, because it's meant to combat certain things. But I have a drinking tea on there that, it's better on the taste. And I'm working on integrating a tea that it's really, really good on taste, and it really gives you that heightened detox. And that's really what the first drinking tea is supposed to be, and it has those elements, no doubt, but I'm looking for something a little bit different. And I drink my teas, so I don't just sell them to you guys. I drink them personally myself before I sell them to you on my Etsy shop. The sun consciousness governs the will of the positive and active forces at work in the living creatures on Earth, including humans. So the sun can be attributed energetically to the masculine energy, which it always is. The moon, obviously, the feminine energy, the dark energy, the chaotic matter. See, you see how those two things work? So when you have the masculine and feminine, they create the Earth together. That, like, if you know about energy, you already know where this is going when they say the sun is this, and it just speaks masculine energy. That's what that is. So if you're somebody who needs more masculine energy in your life, work with the sun or a deity that is of the sun and different things like that. Remember, the sun equals pineal gland. The moon consciousness governs the feminine elements. See? The feminine elements of restraint, elegance, and grace. And the earth consciousness is a life force within the planet. Within the planet itself, responsible for the creation of everything on Earth. The work of these three great planetary consciousness have shaped everything that has happened in the 4.6 billion year history of our Earth. The multi-dimensional world within Earth system ends with the 10th dimension, but beyond that lies the 11th dimension, which is part of the multi-dimensional structure of the solar system. The structural element of this 11th dimension is known as the mission of the solar system. So, the stars and the solar system, the space of the solar system itself is the 11th dimension. So the 12th dimension may be the planets. See how that goes? You have to create the space for, the forms, not the formless, but for the formless to become forms. Like, I like that. I like how that's basically explaining that. The structural element of this 11th dimension is known as the mission of the solar system. The life force or spirit body of our sun is an example of 11th dimensional existence. Beyond this lies the galactic consciousness of the 12th dimension, an unfathomably large spirit responsible for our galaxy. This spirit governs countless 11th dimensional stellar consciousness, including that of our own sun. It is impossible to describe what lies beyond the 12th dimension in the way that I've done with the worlds that exist on Earth's dimensional territory, but I can say that the primordial Buddha of the greater universe, whom we call the primordial God, and is the ultimate spiritual entity, most likely exists beyond the 12th dimension. And the next section I will give you a glimpse of the world's multi-dimensional universe that lies beyond our solar system. And that's what we're reading. We're reading all 12 dimensions today. We're done. 49 minutes, done. Crazy. So, let me see if I can... Oh, we don't got anything on the chat, but I can't put anything on the chat. I'm using a live streaming app, but my God, he goes into it deep. He basically tells you how the dimensions, like how to see what dimension that you're vibrating on currently, and how the world came into being. That shit's fucking crazy. That's wild. I also have another book over here, Power versus Force, and it's all about frequency itself. And it tells you the certain frequencies of things and the science of it. Like the science of it goes down to the nitty gritty, and the experiments done and different things like that. So it's very, very, very good. By David R. Hawkins. This is another one. It tells you that, like, it really is what the title is: Power versus Force. You don't want to force things. You want to use your power. So you first have to know what your power is, and your power is your frequency, your vibration. Crazy. But on some real shit, um, Ryohu Okawa, he got that as a channel in 1985. That book is from the channel is from the 80s. I think he might have wrote the book early 90s, but it's still very relevant to today's time. Like that shit is crazy. Like for everybody just coming in, we just got done reading the 12 Dimensions out of Laws of the Sun by Ryohu Okawa. He's on to some shit. He's he's a Japanese spiritualist, if you want to call him that, but he's from Japan. That book was very, very popular there. It sold like 80 million copies, 20 million here, 80 million there. He's on to some stuff. Like crazy. So I'm gonna do a little reading for us. I just got my first tarot deck. And as you can see, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of wands on the bottom on the shuffle. I got my booklet. I got my book with me this time, so anybody want to ask any questions, now's the time to do it. And tell me what you guys are doing during quarantine. Like, what's everybody doing? Is everybody going crazy? Everybody doing okay? You know? So the first card we pull is the Five of Pentacles upright. Huh. So I'm going to go look in the book, see what that means. Queen of Pentacles, Knight of Pentacles. So the Five of Pentacles, two mendicants in a snowstorm past a lightened cemetery, divinatory meanings. It foretells material trouble above all, whether in the form of illustrated, that is, destitution or otherwise. For some, cartomancies, this is a card of love and lovers. Wife, husband, friend, mistress, also concordance, affinities. These alternatives cannot be harmonized. Huh. Fuck. So, you know, whoever resonates with that, we're gonna pull a second one. Crap. Tarot is definitely a study too. You have to really study these things, so I'm going to do better about, especially when we have the time, about learning each card. I'm going to study the book, but then, you know, I'm going to keep reading. Second card, I'm going to pull 3 cards for it. Second card is Three of Wands. Seems like he's looking. He's just looking on. Fuck the corona. There's that corona familiar. Got the familiar spirits in here. Tonight, we are the corona. So the Three of Wands. A calm, stately figure which has his back turned on a cliff as its ship's passing over sea. He symbolizes established strength, enterprise, effort, trade, discovery, commerce. Those are his ships bearing his merchandise which are sailing over the sea. So this is a pretty good card even when it's reversed. So it's like since these symbols, strength. So you have your someone who's established or establishing their strength or strength within their enterprise, but enterprise as well. Somebody maybe starting a new business, making some type of really good effort in trade, discovery, commerce, that kind of thing. You know, you're like planting yourself where you are. That's a nice one. I'm gonna pull this one as it comes out. The four of Pentacles. So we're back with Pentacles. Let's see what this means. So the Four of Pentacles, a crown figure having a pentacle on his head. So the Sutri of possessions, cleaving to that which has gifts, legacy, inheritance. Surety of possessions, cleaving to that which one has gifts, legacy. So it's talking about like your birthright, your inheritance. Basically, knowing that you have one, maybe. I don't know. I'm gonna have to do more work on this card, but it's basically, so we have Five of Pentacles, Three of Wands, and the Four of Pentacles. So that's the reading for tonight. Anybody want to help me out? Anybody doing tarot? Anybody want to help me out? Anybody got any suggestions? Like, you guys are quiet on the chat tonight. You guys are pretty quiet. I mean, if not, then I'm going to end the live. That's pretty much the live. So sorry for everybody who just came. Basically, the live's basically over unless you want to say something. Ask me a question, I mean, how's your day been? How have you guys been doing? Nobody wants to say anything. You guys are quiet. Quarantine's made everybody fucking quiet. Which is good. You want to quiet your mind, but not when you're on the live. Fucking hang out. I'll give you guys a minute or so. And we did, for the last person that just came in, I just pulled 3 cards for us. Five of Pentacles, Three of Wands, Four of Pentacles. I pulled the Lovers for myself last night on a very specific reading, so that was cool. Nobody want to say anything? Well, and I'm just going to head and end the live. I'm going to do some more reading. So, Alchemy of Life, guys, I'm out. Peace. And, keep reading. Keep researching. Keep doing your thing. And during quarantine, like, master yourself. If you're at that point. If you've already done that, then just keep going. Just do a frequency check. What level am I at? Check in with yourself like that. Like, what level are you at? That's what we want to know. Like, where am I at, and where am I wanting to be? That's the whole point. So, peace, y'all.